I'm delighted today to be here in the House of Commons to launch our 2021 Road to Zero report. It really does allow us to follow on from previous reports in terms of monitoring the progress of our sector in delivering the zero emission economy that we all want to buy into. I think the main messaging that comes out of the report is really very clear. If one looks at the segments of the marketplace, I think we're seeing that cars, we're saying they're green, they're on track. We've got great supply, we've got increasing infrastructure, and we've got a tax and incentive scheme that customers understand, our members understand, and it's working.
Interest in EVs from a business perspective is being driven by a favourable company car BIK tax regime. Currently we're only forecast on that to 2025, I believe. So we need certainty going through to 2030 in terms of that, the road to zero. Businesses need certainty. We need certainty in terms of making sure that as contracts, new contracts come on board, that we've got that certainty in terms of the tax position. That's super important if we want those EV registrations going forward.
That's so important, especially in leasing. People commit to a car for a 3-4 year period. So people need to know the benefits today. So our customers today, when given the right incentives, will make the transition. So the longer the period around which we have clarity on things like grants, things like taxation, and I'd emphasize no sudden changes because demand is still fragile, confidence is growing, but it's still fragile. So the longer the period for which the government can give clarity, and if we can avoid a cliff edge in terms of financial incentives, but have a more gradual petering down, I think it'll give people the confidence to make the switch leading up to 2030.
I think when we look at vans, we start to see a different picture emerging. Vans, there's much more work to do in terms of supply. Even the variants that are on the market today, we're waiting 12 months, perhaps 18 months for them to come through, and there needs to be more variants.
We need to make sure that we can make enough. That's the simple answer of it, and I don't think there is the capacity right now for manufacturers of these to make enough of them to make sure the demand is met. Especially, you ask one question about what can we do to make people buy more. We don't almost need to at the moment. We need to be able to make more before we put the incentives in to buy more. It's very hard, very challenging.
I think there needs to be tax incentives, there needs to be a real boost from government to those companies to say, we can do this, we can put EVs, we can put hydrogen vehicles into our fleets and give consumers the confidence to use them.
And then that brings us to trucks. And in trucks, this is where we see there is the most work still to do. We have to address really a date, where the government is now quoting a date of 2040 perhaps, in terms of the phasing out of diesel trucks. And when we look at 2040, we don't have a technology roadmap to replace a truck. We don't have a charging or an insight into a charging infrastructure to support trucks. We don't have any indication in terms of when hydrogen might be a realistic alternative for trucks as they come forward. And there is no discussion as yet ongoing around what level of incentives and grants might be needed.
I suspect that we might end up with a hybrid situation where domestic vehicles are electric and goods vehicles, buses, are hydrogen. A hydrogen plant is coming on stream. Those vehicles are being piloted, and I think that makes sense. There's no reason why you shouldn't have a fleet of hydrogen London buses while people are driving around in electric cars. So it doesn't have to be either or. But a lot of it does come down to the technology. Fundamentals are, one, you've got to have the mileage available, and two, you've got to have somewhere to charge the vehicle.
Charging points. We need more infrastructure, more charging points.
The infrastructure is a really big issue. The charge network's not big enough. There isn't a common payment back end, which is a real big issue. You can turn up a commercial charger and not be able to charge your car because you haven't got the right card.
Charging is definitely a big fear. It's about how far is my vehicle going to go and where can I charge it.
I know friends of mine who want to buy an EV vehicle have been told by their local electricity supply company that they can't have a pod point or an EV charger at their house simply because they haven't got the infrastructure in the area to support it. So I think even the national grid need to put some more money into the infrastructure. Obviously that has to be government backed.
Having spoken with people here today, one of my key concerns is my constituency is very rural. How do we actually roll out the electric network into rural Great Britain?
So it's a mixed picture. Great news on cars, really going in the right direction, still more to do. Less good news on vans, still a lot of work to do, and a hell of a lot more work to do on trucks, where basically all of our monitors are showing red.